Every honeybee fills with jealousy when they see you out with me. You're much sweeter.
I have a little mini story. It's not really a story, it's my introduction for Phil. But 12 and a half years ago, Phil was a stay-at-home dad, and I was working full-time. And he came to me and he said, Megan, I want to be a beekeeper. I want to keep bees. Okay, so privately, I was like, because we didn't know anybody who kept bees. Nobody. I had never known anybody who had ever kept bees, ever. And those of you that are looking around the room knowingly, you're skipping ahead to what came next, of course. So Phil got the beehive and started keeping bees. And over the next year, he talked to me about what he was reading and what he was learning and what he was doing and how fulfilling it was and how interesting it was. And there's a bug in here. And I caught on, I caught the fever. I went bee nerdy, as they say, right alongside him. And so about a year later, I was a beekeeper too. And then 8 years ago, we opened the Honey Exchange. And part of our education mission is to teach beekeeping to children and other groups because we wanted to continue to spread the awareness, the value, and just the joy of beekeeping. And Phil has gone to countless groups, preschool, what is a honeybee? Second graders, the superorganism, middle schoolers, where does our food come from? High schoolers, haploid, diploid, advanced biology, UNE students, sustainability classes. And then, of course, there's library visits and scout troops. He was at a homeschooled Mennonite group last week. It's incredible diversity. And then garden clubs. Garden clubs love Phil. The fact is, everybody does, because he has a way of sharing just the absolute thrill of being a beekeeper in a way that no matter your age, no matter what you're interested in, you're going to get it. So earlier this morning, Talasa mentioned our motto at the Honey Exchange. What's good for the bee is good for me. And I like that motto, and I think that it's true. And we've heard a lot of people today talking about why that's true. But what you might not know is Phil has a personal motto. And it goes like this: do the next good thing. And that works, whether you're happy or sad. If he's sad, I'm going to do the next good thing. And if he's happy, I'm going to do the next good thing. Think about that. That's really what we've been talking about here today. Choking myself up a little. So let's welcome Phil to the stage, my hero, Phil Gaven.
So the first swarm of bees I ever saw was on television. It was the 1970s. I was up past my bedtime, and the killer bees were coming for us. And like a lot of people of my generation, I grew up with a deep psychic bruise from this experience. But really, if you poll people of any age and you ask them about their deepest fears, bees are usually going to finish in the top 10. Now, the second swarm of bees I ever saw, I was a restaurant manager, and I arrived at work one morning to a swarm the size of a basketball hanging right in front of the entrance to the restaurant. I was face to face with my deepest fear. So I did what anybody would do. I went to the Yellow Pages, and I looked up beekeeper. And in my recollection, this guy came out, he cut off a branch with the bees on it, put it in a box, and walked away. I thought he was some kind of wizard. Well, I've had an unusual career path, and now I'm that wizard. I don't claim to possess any supernatural or spiritual powers. I've just learned a few things about what those bees are looking for out there. Sometimes it's just easy pickings. Megan got called out to the south of the border restaurant at the main mall, and hanging right in front of their dining room window was a swarm the size of a volleyball. And inside was a room full of people who were looking on with an equal measure of fascination and terror. Well, Megan just saunters up. She's wearing shorts, a t-shirt, a pair of flip-flops. And she throws on her veil, just takes the branch that the bees are on, and shakes them into this thing we call a bee brief. She puts that down on the ground, and we spend about 30 minutes talking to the guests at the restaurant and the staff there, explaining what's going on. And the bees are just marching and flying into the brief. And then she just closes it up, and we go home with a briefcase full of bees. My wife, as ever, making things look effortless. Now, as with other forms of wizardry, there are the stories we tell and the secrets we keep. What we're going to tell you is that a swarm of bees is not inclined to sting. This isn't that horror movie where the bees are out on the attack. What's happening is that there's a thriving hive somewhere, and it's ready to be fruitful and multiply. And what the hive does first is it creates a whole mess of extra bees. And then about 2/3 of those bees will leave with the old queen to go seek their fortune in the world. These are bees in the middle of the act of reproduction. They're in a fine mood. Well, when we talk about 2/3 of a hive, that's in the neighborhood of 10 or 20,000 bees, maybe more. But they've left the hive that they used to defend, and until they've built the new hive that they're going to build, they don't have a defensive instinct. And what my mother taught me about bees was, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. And this is generally true whether it's one bee bothering a kid in the garden or 20,000 bees hanging out on a sapling. Now, we got called out to the run-of-the-mill pub in Saco. They've got this beautiful second-story patio that overlooks the Saco River. And down by the river, there's a sapling with a swarm on it the size of a large loaf of bread. And there wasn't anything we could really cut off, so the plan was to just shake the whole tree. So my friend Richard was there, and his job was to stand at the top of a ladder, and he was going to push the tree down, while Megan, at the base of the tree, was going to pull on it with a rope. My role was to stand underneath the swarm with a big tote and catch them when they fall. So we're ready to go on 3. On 1, I feel like my aim is pretty good. I'm in the right space. On 2, we all tense up. It's go time. On 3, Richard gives the tree a mighty push. Megan gives the rope a mighty pull. And about 3/4 of the bees fall into my tote. The other quarter of them fall into my right forearm, and they're really mad. So I get about 4 or 5 stings to my arm, and I just kind of put the tote on the ground and discreetly start pulling stingers out of my skin, to a round of applause from the second-story patio. And I'm wearing my Swarm Team 6 t-shirt at the time, and so I can't let on that I really want to just cry like a baby, because I know that a lot of the members of that audience up at the patio would list bees among their deepest fears. Well, sometimes I get to be a hero. I got called out to the main medical center, and between the main door of the hospital and the south door was a swarm in the tree the size of a bundt cake. And it was hanging right over the employee bike racks. As you might imagine, the hospital was in full freak-out mode. They've got the yellow tape out. So I just roll up, double park, throw on the flashers. It's okay, I'm a beekeeper. Even the police don't know what to do with that one. Well, the bees were in a nook of the tree where we couldn't really shake them and we couldn't really cut them. So this calls for the old brood comb trick. In my kit, one of the things I have is an old frame of brood comb where bees have lived before. The queen has laid eggs and the brood is hatched out. And we know that that's one of the things that the swarm is out looking for. It's a furnished apartment, if you will. So you can just lean that up near the swarm, and a whole bunch of bees are going to crawl right onto that. So you can take that frame and put it into a box, or just take the bees and shake them into the box and repeat that process. So I use that technique to get a few bees tempted by my box down here. And then it's time to take a 5-gallon pail. And what you do is you go thump underneath them, a bunch of bees fall into the pail, and then you dump them into the box. It's the old thump and dump. And I'm going to just do my best to knock the majority of those bees into a bucket and then dump them down with the rest of the team. They probably aren't going to sting them. If they do, I've been stung before. Oh my God. Now, we got called up to the University of New England, just up the road from the Honey Exchange. And it's Parents' Weekend. So they've got a big catering tent set up for tomorrow. And right around the corner from that, there's a swarm in the tree the size of a prize-winning summer watermelon. And it was higher in the tree than we could get with my ladder, so the plan was to just shake the branch, lay a sheet out on the ground, and just catch the bees where they fall. And so one of these days, I'm going to learn how to tie a monkey paw knot at the end of my rope so I can throw it. But I haven't learned how to do that yet. So the best we had at the time was a wrench. So I take the rope and I tie it to the wrench, and it has a nice chuckable heft. And so my first toss is high and outside. Nearly hits a window, and the wrench comes clattering down the fire escape. My second throw, I overcompensate. I come in low and inside, and it's stuck in the branches like Charlie Brown's kite. My third throw is perfect. Wrench goes up, threads between two branches of the tree, but as it's in the air, I have this vague recollection of something from high school physics class about an object in motion will travel in a straight line until acted upon by another force. In this case, the branch of the tree itself and the rope have created a centripetal force to propel the wrench back from whence it came at an increasing velocity directly toward my head. But I duck out in time, live to tell the tale, and I grab hold of the rope. We give the rope a mighty tug, and the bees fall to the ground with an audible splat. Now, I got called up to New Gloucester recently, and there's a family up there that really a very, very nervous mom. The kids just want to go and play out in the sandbox, but right near there, hanging up in the tree, is a swarm the size of Virginia ham. Now, a quick side note. If you're going to call us about a swarm, it's useful to have a good description for that swarm. You can't just say it's lots of bees, because your lots of bees is probably different from my lots of bees. So on the phone, I asked the guy to estimate how high off the ground it is, but literally no one is good at estimating that. And so I asked, can we get to it with a ladder? And the guy says, probably. So I drive all the way up there, and we can get to it with a ladder, but only if the guy backs his pickup onto the lawn, and then we put the ladder into the back of the pickup. I go up to the top of the ladder with a long painter's pole. This is the old brood comb on a stick trick. I've got my brood comb up there, and I'm getting some bees collected, but I can only do this for so long because my arm is about to fall off. So I come down, and now it's time for the old bucket on a stick trick. You take a 5-gallon pail, duct tape that to the painter's pole, back up to the top of the ladder. So the plan then is to just give them a hearty whump underneath. But when I do that, I know what's going to happen. I know I'm going to get a bunch of bees into my bucket, but in doing so, I'm going to get lots of bees all over myself. And I mean like my lots of bees. But, you know, I'm a swarm wrangler. I can't just leave that up in a tree, terrifying mom. So I go back up to the top of the ladder, and with my arm fully extended, I give the swarm a hearty whump underneath. And well, long story short, I take about 30 stings to various parts of my body. I was driving a borrowed car that day, and I didn't have my jacket, didn't have my veil. I really needed those. And of course, I'm wearing shorts, right? So 0 stars. I can't recommend this in any way. But it's the work we do. We're Swarm Team 6. We're here to deal with your deepest fears, so you don't have to. Thank you.